What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Red and Bold Show. We're excited to have you, excited to talk 49ers football. I am your host, Marc Adams. You can find me at 49ers Camelot, and I'm joined by my always great co-host, Anthony Robertson, who you can find at 49ers Cutback. Ant, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's always better coming off a win. It was such an electric atmosphere at Levi Stadium on Sunday night. I was able to go to the game, and it
Nice.
was just so much fun being there. Getting to meet different people. I got to meet Joel. He's one of the listeners. He listens to John. He listens to all of us, and it was really nice meeting him and his wife. And so it's just a good experience. And now we get to talk about 49ers in a positive light. It was so tough coming off that loss to Tampa Bay, the injury to Fred Warner. And now we're sitting in a whole different spot where I don't know about you, Mark, but sometimes it feels like it doesn't really matter who's out there on the field. Like they're going to find a way to win. That's almost how it feels. And we know that's not the case. They just got players that are stepping up and making plays. But it's been so interesting the way that this season has went so far.
Yeah, and it's always concerning that that people are going to after a while that these injuries are going to catch up to them. And so, we heard more about Brock, or not Brock, but Bryce Huff, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So those are always the concerns. But I want to start off with an update on Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, and I noticed Joe Carmack in the chat asked, when do Pearsall, Watkins, Ayuk, and Barch come back? And is Givens back this week? All right, so first, Givens played last Sunday, so that we're already seeing him be part of this. Jordan Watkins is no longer on the injury report, so I thought that he would play on Sunday. He didn't. I was frustrated by that. In fact, I tweeted it out. I was like, why is Malik Turner playing ahead of Jordan Watkins? And then Malik Turner goes out and makes like three great special teams plays. And I thought, okay, that's probably why. Still, I want to see Watkins out there. Barch, I don't know. Have you heard when he's going to be back?
No, I mean, the first thing we started hearing, right, Kyle Shanahan said they might open the practice window for Spencer Burford, but nothing on Ben Barch. And it was a 4 to 6 week injury. And so I know that they're going to have to make some tough offensive line decisions. I wouldn't be shocked to see them move forward with Spencer Burford's window being opened. I don't know if he'll be activated this week, but let's not forget he's still the best offensive tackle backup the 49ers have. They've been rolling with Austin Pleasance, and luckily there's been no injuries to have to put Pleasance out there. But with Ben Barch, I don't know if they're in a rush to bring him back. Now, it could be something that probably gets emphasized a little bit more because of the injury to Jake Brendel. That might move it along because now Matt Hennessy could have been a fluid mover. He's at center now, and so you need some more subs. And, Connor Kobe played well, but Nick Sickel did not in his 4 snaps. And so that's something that's interesting to watch, too, is the makeup of this offensive line. I think Barch probably a week or two off.
All right. And then he also asks about Brandon Ayuk, which we're probably talking November, sometime in November when he comes back. And then Ricky Pearsall. So here's the thing. Last Saturday, Diana Rossini wrote this article in which she mentioned that Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall are expected to be back in week 8, which is this Sunday. Then Sunday night, Melissa Stark on the broadcast said something to the effect of Brock Purdy maybe not being ready, and that he's day to day, and that sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. And then on Monday, Kyle Shanahan said it suggested that look, it's probably not going to happen this week. Now there is, I think Diana Rossini again came out with something either yesterday or late Monday. I can't remember, but in that piece, she's saying that Brock Purdy is not coming along very well, that he's he's having good days and bad days, and that Ricky Pearsall may not be ready for this Sunday, that he's kind of having good days and bad days. So we've gone from thinking, hey, maybe Purdy and Pearsall will be back for this game in Houston, to now it sounds like they're not going to be back this week. And so that's frustrating. Now, granted, I would prefer that they take their time, bring them back when they're ready. I just don't know about the turf toe, man. That's cost people their careers. Deion Sanders was one of them. And I don't think Brock Purdy has it near as bad as some of those. I mean, Joe Burrow had to have surgery. Purdy didn't. But does he need to have surgery? I mean, I guess I think we're just in this situation where, one step forward, two steps back. If that's the case, do they need to consider shutting him down for the season, or they just need to wait longer until it's fully healthy? Will it be fully healthy this year? I don't know. I'm not a toe specialist. I'm not a podiatrist or, somebody that deals with this. So I really don't know what to think about Purdy or Pearsall, either of those situations.
Well, I think they're sitting in a good spot. Right now they've been able to win football games with Mac Jones at quarterback, and that kind of affords them the opportunity to wait on Brock Purdy. There's no reason to rush these guys back, and anytime you can get a big win like you did on Sunday night, it kind of propels you forward. And you look at the 49ers, next 7 games, and they've got 5 very winnable and a couple that are going to be pretty tough. And so I think when you look at that moving forward, why rush Brock Purdy back now? And so he's out there, he's getting a little bit of work, and some of that is to get some of the flexibility back in that toe. As somebody who's had a toe injury, a turf toe injury, I know how stiff it gets. I know how hard it is just to move around. It's very painful. It's not good. And so I understand why Brock Purdy's having so many problems. And I think that this is a nice way for the 49ers to go about it. Let's just take care of it. There's no rush. If we get into a predicament, we could always get Brock Purdy out there sooner rather than later. And with Pearsall, they rushed Dominic Pooney back. Pooney had basically the same injury, and they rushed him back, and he's been dealing with it and working through it. But when it comes to a wide receiver, there's a lot of change of direction. There's a lot of different things that go into that. You're getting good wide receiver play from Kendrick Bourne and Jawan Jennings, and and Demarcus Robinson's been out there competing as well. So you have bodies. I don't think you really have to rush either of those guys back. Let's make sure when they get back, they're fully healthy, and you can just make a full run for it. So Mac Jones has done a great job helping the 49ers. The emergence of Kendrick Bourne has done a really good job of helping the 49ers overcome the Pearsall loss. And so I think the 49ers are feeling comfortable about the injuries and not really willing to rush anyone back. And I think that's the proper approach, because you're still winning with this mash unit that you got putting out there every single week.
Yeah. And I would rather them be lean more on the cautious side and not rush a guy back. Just from Matt Barrows, Christian McCaffrey is the NFL's Offensive Player of the Week. So that's pretty cool, having McCaffrey win that award. I want to go back to this question before we move on. Let's see. So Joe Carmack had asked that question earlier. He also asked, is CJ West playing right now? He is. He's just not logging as many snaps as the others. Do you see anything from CJ West? Is he just not as far along as the others, or what's the issue there?
Well, I mean, I think now too, they brought Kevin Givens back, so they've kind of changed the rotation. Alfred Collins snaps are going way up. He's into the 40s. I think they're really enjoying what they're getting from him. As you notice, the more that Alfred Collins has played, the better the run stats are getting. Now the 49ers are only giving up 100 yards per game, so that's slowly trickling down. With CJ West, I think we forget that he had a setback. He had the broken thumb that he had to have surgery on. He's been playing with a cast. So he's finally getting to where he can use his hands again. So I think that he shows things. He shows little signs here and there that he's, developing, but he's just not kind of developing as fast as Alfred Collins. But that's the big difference, right? Someone was drafted in the 2nd round. Someone was drafted in the 4th round. There's a reason. Alfred Collins is a monster of a man, and West is not. But I think West is coming along, and I still think he's going to be very positive in the future because he's got a lot of ability to pass rush and move down the line of scrimmage. He's talented.
Joe also asked, what's up with Adam Schefter reporting we're trading for a linebacker from Cincy? I haven't heard anything about a linebacker. I mean, I don't guess he's talking about Trey Hendrickson, but I don't think that the Bengals are going to be trading anybody. I think that they won last week, and I think that they're just going to keep on hoping to win games until Joe Burrow gets back. So, but I haven't heard about a linebacker. Have you heard that? I'm not sure.
No, I haven't heard that, and I don't think that the Cincinnati Bengals are planning on making any trades, at least in a negative light, or at least trading pieces away. I said this from the very beginning. I thought they were more likely to trade for a quarterback than trade Trey Hendrickson, and that was true. They traded for Joe Flacco. He had a really good first game there in Cincinnati, and I think that they want to roll with that. I think they're trying to get to December, like you said, until Joe Burrow can come back. And so I don't see them making any moves. I think Trey Hendrickson is going to be a tough one to pry away. And I'm not sure the 49ers are going to invest that much draft capital into a player unless they feel this is someone that can put them over the top. And I don't know if they feel right now Trey Hendrickson can be that guy.
Yeah, and Shanahan also suggested that what they really, if they make a move, they'd really like to find somebody that they have more than just for this season, somebody that would be back the next year. So Joe says some guy named Logan Wilson. Yeah, the 49, I really don't think that they're going to go after a linebacker. I mean, that's one of the areas that they have some guys there.
Yeah, if you look at the way Tatum Bethune played this week, especially, I thought him and D. Winters had good games. I thought that, we started seeing Nick Martin on special teams flying around, and now he's active. Curtis Robinson logged some game time. I thought he looked okay. I think they have plenty of depth at linebacker. They just added Stone Blanton to the practice squad. I don't see them going linebacker, but anytime that you have an injury at linebacker or any position, you start hearing some of the potential trade matchups. I don't think this is going to happen, but, you never know. 49ers have added depth before when we didn't think they needed to. Look at Charles Omenihu, a couple, way back. They added him, and they didn't really have to, but then he was going to be there for a couple years, and it benefited the 49ers greatly.
All right, we mentioned that Christian McCaffrey has been named the Offensive Player of the Week. He was incredible on Sunday. I don't know that because we've talked a little bit about how he doesn't seem to quite have that burst, but I didn't feel like his issues were McCaffrey related as much as they were the fact that he had nowhere to run. It does make me wonder, with some of the lanes that he had on Sunday, if 2023 McCaffrey, instead of breaking off 15-yard runs, if those might have been 60-yarders or whatever. But regardless, he was great. George Kittle had no catches. In fact, Connor Colby had more receptions than George Kittle had. Connor Colby had more receptions than George Kittle, and any of the, well, I guess Luke Farrell had a catch, but of the three tight ends, one catch, and then there was Connor Colby. That was kind of funny. But Kittle's impact on the run game was obviously huge. Now, do you think that the run game's rebirth from Sunday night was more Kittle related, more offensive line clicking, or more the fact that the Falcons are terrible against the run?
It was actually a unique opportunity where I thought that it was George Kittle coming back definitely helped. You could tell the creativity in what Kyle Shanahan and Chris Foerster put together as far as a run game plan was really unique. They did some things they haven't done this year that they haven't put on film yet. They knew how to attack this defense, that's for sure. But it was definitely a plan that included George Kittle, and you could see the confidence. They've been having to double team on the edge a lot of times this season. You didn't see that from Kyle Juszczyk and from George Kittle this week, and that's because the trust factor with those two guys was definitely there. That's number one. George Kittle made a huge impact on the run game. Number two, Christian McCaffrey, he was really reading things very well. His vision was on point.
Yeah,
You could see a little bit of explosiveness in him. I thought he looked really good. And then you have to throw in there, Atlanta's interior defensive line is not very big. That defense is really predicated on speed from the edge and their outside guys to the inside defensive linemen. The 49ers took advantage of that. Colt McKivitz was blowing guys up all over the field, driving them back. You saw that consistently. They were winning on the inside. And so it was a combination of everything put together. But make no mistake, George Kittle made a huge impact. And his impact is not just felt in the run game, but also in the passing game, because he opened up better windows for Christian McCaffrey and got him better matchups as well. None more clear than that 3rd and 13 down the stretch in the game where they double George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey gets a one-on-one look that Mac Jones is able to hit him inside the 5-yard line. So George Kittle, his effects were there. They just didn't show up with stats. But everyone knew the 49ers probably wanted to get George Kittle the football, so they took George Kittle away, and it opened up everything else.
All right, I want to go to this question here from Joe Carmack again. So Pearsall and Watkins are back this week. So there was talk that Pearsall would be, but now there's talk that he won't be ready this week. So I really don't know. And as far as Watkins, here's the thing. So Malik Turner has now been elevated from the practice squad 3 times. Once that happens, then the team has to make a decision what they're going to do. Are they quick, because they can't elevate him after he's been elevated 3 times. So they either have to add him to the active roster or essentially let him go and perhaps bring him back. I guess they could leave him on the practice squad, but they just can't elevate him anymore. And so I haven't heard what their plan is or what their thinking is. I would tend to think that they would, because of their wide receiver situation, that they would probably move on from him. But he was so good on special teams on Sunday night that maybe they're thinking, hey, we need that guy. But gosh, do they really have room to bring up Malik Turner? I saw him play at least one offensive snap, but I just don't know if they're going to add him to the active roster just for special teams purposes.
No, I don't think they can. I mean, that's what Sky Moore is basically doing, at wide receiver right now. And Sky Moore did himself a favor and made a couple of plays in this game. I thought that catch out in the flat where he was able to get, double-digit yards was a huge play. And he needed that because he's got to kind of stave off Jordan Watkins, because Jordan Watkins, if he gets on the field and he starts making plays, they might think about moving on from Sky Moore, because Watkins can also do the kick return, punt return thing. But right now, I think it's tough for a guy, to make this roster that's on the practice squad. They've got a lot of decisions to make, and they're stacking injuries at places like defensive end, where elevations for guys like Robert Beal seem to be coming. And that's probably what's going to happen with Malik Turner's spot. It'll probably be Robert Beal Jr., who's been a really good special teams player too. So they're going to keep finding ways to bring guys up for special teams. I don't think they can add Turner to the active roster. I just don't think that makes sense with the way the wide receiver room is built. I mean, you're leaving Jordan Watkins inactive as it is. So I think you're on point with that. I don't think that happens. I don't know if they just leave him on the practice squad or what they try to do. Maybe they do in case they have an injury and want to elevate him. But I'm sure he's gonna want to find somewhere to land. I don't know if another team would sign him, but I guess he would be willing for sure.
And then at some point, the hope is that Jacob Cowling is going to be ready to come back. I haven't heard any updates on him, but I would think that they would be getting pretty close to at least opening his practice window and getting him back out there. But have you heard anything on Cowling?
No, I don't think that Jacob Cowling is in their plans for the season.
Really?
With the way with the way the wide receiver room is built and the amount of IR returns that they're going to need to have, I think they're trying to hold one. I think they want to have one in case Fred can come back. Right now, the 49ers have a 75% chance of making the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, there's a chance Fred Warner could end up showing back up. And I think they want that chance. It's like they did a few years ago in 2022, where they kept saving a spot for Jimmy Garoppolo as long as they could, just in case, and didn't bring back a defensive lineman. I think they'll do that. And you've got Sky Moore now. You've replaced Jacob Cowing to a point. I think they just kind of medical redshirt Jacob Cowing this year and see what he could do next year. They've always got it in case they need it, but you only get 8 returns from IR. And so it's very important. You still got guys like Brandon Ayuk. We're talking about Spencer Burford and Ben Barch, lots of guys. That's why guys like Yetur Gross-Matos and them haven't ended up on IR, because you're trying to save those spots just in case you need them.
There is a possibility. I think it'd be a bad idea, but there is a possibility that they could end up putting Watkins down for the rest of the season. But he's no longer on the injury report, so I really don't see that happening. I think they need to get him in there. Maybe he's not going to be the player that Malik Turner was on special teams, but he might put him back there and have him return some punts. I mean, he can't be any worse than Sky Moore, unless he fumbles. I mean, that would be worse for sure, because Sky Moore has at least protected the ball. But I would love to see Watkins get out there, but there's something that's keeping them from doing it, and I'm just not sure what that is.
I think it's experience. That's one of the things the 49ers have going for them right now at the wide receiver position is experience. You have guys that understand how to get from A to B, and I think that's important when it comes to Mac Jones, as he's still learning this offense. He doesn't have a mastery of this offense. He's still in his first year, and so I think it's important to know that he has guys that he can count on. We've seen when they don't get to the right spot or they don't make the plays, it ends up in an interception. Kendrick Bourne a couple weeks ago doesn't go to the right spot. You can't allow that to happen with a young player. So we've seen some confidence from the 49ers in Sky Moore this week. They had him on the field, so they're starting to feel more comfortable with him. But, I just think that's part of it with Jordan Watkins. And I think with Kittle being back, I think the 49ers are going to run more 21 personnel, more 12 personnel, which means less opportunities for wide receivers anyways. You're already going to have one of those 3 that I talked about earlier not on the field, and you still got guys that are going to eventually come back. Ricky Pearsall, you're going to potentially get Brandon Ayuk back. How do you get all these guys on the field and all get them their reps? I think it's something interesting to watch how they monitor this as the season goes on.
JD Durham in the chat asks, will we see Nick Martin at linebacker by the end of the year?
There's a possibility. I think that Luke Gifford is kind of the spot that would be. I think Luke Gifford's done a good enough job. I think he plays really well on special teams. 49ers, definitely, he got targeted a lot against Tampa Bay. This week, the 49ers designated, the tight end for Atlanta. I'm going blank. Pitts. They designated him as a tight end for the first drive, and so that meant he was on the field. Luke Gifford, I thought he did okay. But then they went big nickel, and they went with Jason Pennick, and then eventually they went with Chase Lucas in their nickel package. They just designated him as a wide receiver. So I don't know how many opportunities Gifford's going to have, but I think that at some point, Nick Martin is too alluring. The athleticism, you just see it. I mean, this dude is an absolute monster. So as long as he can pick up the scheme, he's dynamic. He's one of those guys that can bring pressure off the edge. He's blitzed with speed. He's fast. He can cover in space. There's a chance, but I think it's going to take some time. He's still learning and developing. But anytime Nick Martin's around, I just look at the possibilities, and I'm sure that's what Johnny Hollins and them are doing. But he can't make mistakes, and you just can't have that from your third linebacker.
All right, I want to run through some things that you saw on tape, and so I want to move through this kind of quickly. Give me your grade on Tatum Bethune in his first game leading the defense.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a B+. I thought it was really good. And the fact that there wasn't any breakdowns, right? He was communicating with everybody, got everyone lined up the right way. Seen a couple of things here and there. Maybe the line didn't shift as fast as you would like them. But other than that, I thought he did a really good job. His tackling was good. He was in the right positions. Yeah, B+, first time, good effort, 10 tackles. Great job for Tatum. He should have had a half sack too. He got robbed, and he was upset about that.
Yeah, he was. We mentioned that Connor Colby had more catches than both of the pass-catching tight ends. How did he look doing his actual job? Because I think it was John Chapman maybe that said that this was his best game.
Yeah, I thought that last week was a step in the right direction, and I thought that this week kind of continued that. You're still seeing the inconsistencies from him. So, we've been talking about this for a while. It was like one good play, one bad play, one good. Now we're starting to get to where it's like 2 or 3 good plays and then a bad play. So the consistency is definitely better. I think the biggest thing that helped him was you could tell the difference between the 4 plays Nick Zakelj was in and the rest of the plays that Connor Kobe was in. So I don't think he's like there yet, but I definitely think we've seen little improvements from him, and that's moving in a positive direction. Now, we got to remember, we just talked about Atlanta's interior defensive line. How much of that was also Atlanta's interior defensive line? That's something I want to see. What can Connor Kobe do next week against Houston and the following week against New York? Those are going to be tough battles, and I want to see how he handles those things. That will be when we really find out who Connor Kobe is, the consistency.
What do you mean that you noticed a difference when Nick Zakelj was in instead of Connor Colby?
Well, Nick Zakelj gave up ground. He would get pushed back a little bit. He plays with less physicality than Connor Kobe. Connor Kobe can move guys. I mean, he hasn't got all the lead in his pants that you would like from those guys on the interior as far as anchoring or even getting a push, but he definitely has a lot more than Zakelj. And so you definitely notice that part. There's one play, I mean, Nick Zakelj gets ran over by Kyle Juszczyk, and it's unfortunate because if he would have been able to move his guy a little bit, Juszczyk wouldn't have ran into him. The 49ers would have got a big gain. Instead, they got like 1 yard. Those are the kind of things you notice.
Okay. Jake Brendel went down. He's going to be out for probably a few weeks with a hamstring. Matt Hennessy came in. How did Hennessy look, and is he the type of player that could take Jake Brendel's job?
I thought Hennessy did good. I mean, he came in there, and one of the first things you want to notice is what happens when you get to protections. That's what I look at first. Is he going to be able to make the calls? Can he slide protections? Is he going to recognize where the blitzes are coming from? And I felt like he did a good job with that. He is an experienced center. He had a lot of starts when he played for Atlanta. So I think that he was the mental part of it he had figured out. After that, he's a little bit light. There's a lot of things about Matt Hennessy that are very familiar. They look a lot like Jake Brendel. Doesn't have a huge anchor, very athletic, getting to the second level, better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. Like, all these things are pretty similar. And so I thought that he did a good job. I thought that he was definitely playing up to the level that he needed to play. I don't know if he's a consistent starter yet. Like I said, we got to wait and find out, because I know a lot of people right now are saying, hey, Matt Hennessy should just have this job. But if you go watch the first quarter and a half, Jake Brendel was having himself a game too. He had like one mistake where he went down, and it's the play before, he gets injured. So I think that there's an opportunity for both of them to play well in that game. So I don't think it's so much that Jake Brendel was playing so bad and Matt Hennessy came in and played good. I think they both played good. So what does Hennessy do against Houston? What does he do against New York these next several weeks when Jake Brendel's out? I don't think that Matt Hennessy takes this job. I think Chris Foerster goes right back to Jake Brendel. They're comfortable with Brendel. But I think Matt Hennessy can put himself in a position to make it more interesting. But I just think that they're very similar players. And I think that they've been very happy with Jake Brendel's play this year. And I know that always ruffles feathers because I think sometimes it's inconsistent. But if you watch the first quarter and a half, Jake Brendel played really well.
Yeah, I just know the fan base is itching to get rid of Jake Brendel, but I don't think that's going to happen this season. Let me ask you this. When we talk about offensive line and being a little too light, you go back to the 80s when Bob McKittrick had an undersized offensive line that he performed magic with. Is it that things are just, the game is just different these days, and so you can't have that undersized offensive line? Like, are the defensive linemen, is it because they're just so much bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic? Or is it just, if Bill Walsh was here today running the same offense, would he still have an undersized offensive line?
I mean, I don't know. My guess is Bill Walsh's offense would have evolved, tremendously, in fact, because he was a guy who believed in evolution. He would have found the next way. And I do think his offensive line would have evolved as well because, Vita Vea didn't exist, in the 1980s. I mean, that's a matchup issue. for almost anybody on the interior offensive line. But those types of freaks, Aaron Donalds and Vita Veas and these guys that can pretty much do it all. Chris Jones, it's really nuts to see how these guys play. So I think that the game has evolved. I think that you still have to have, this is the tough part with the outside zone scheme. You have to have guys athletic enough to be able to make the plays on the second level and really get down the field. And you have to have them be where they can have enough weight, enough lead in their pants where they can anchor and be able to hold up against the bigger defensive tackles. Quick enough to move laterally and block, and then strong enough to hold up. That's why I like Dominic Pooney when he came out of the draft, because he showed those two characteristics. I think Connor Kobe could be kind of in that mold, but their centers aren't. But that's just been the way that the 49ers have to build. And I think it does make it interesting, and why there's some difficulties sometimes when it comes to dealing with the bigger defensive linemen.
There was a defensive lineman back in the 80s that was the Aaron Donald dominant type. And but he played for the 49ers. His name was Michael Carter. And he was just about unblockable. That guy was incredible. You remember him, don't you?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Olympic silver medalist in the shot put.
He was so good. All right. I've been hard on Darrell Luter Jr. for quite a while. Give me a grade on him, because he was up and down, but he was better than I expected him to be. When Renardo Green went down, I was like, oh no. But Luter played well on Sunday night.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Luter Jr. held in there, and that was one of the things going into this game. If you would have told me that Tatum Bethune, Darrell Luter Jr., and Chase Lucas were going to be expected to make big plays, if we were in training camp and we're going to this game with that, I would have had some serious question marks, but they all did well. And I thought Darrell Luter Jr., it wasn't perfect. It wasn't clean. There's still a couple of plays that, he played too far off, or he lost, where his guy was. He fell for the double move from Darnell Mooney at the end of the first half. Those things were still frustrating. But overall, I thought that he came up and he helped in run support. I thought he competed. He played physical, and that's all you can really ask for. I thought he showed that he's a solid rotational cornerback. And someone that could step in. If you have a problem with Renardo Green, he's not just going to get torched. And I think that's a good sign. It showed development. That's ultimately what they need. But they definitely need Renardo back, because when Renardo is playing, that secondary is pretty tough to deal with.
That play, though, when he lined up over Bijan Robinson and knocked him to the ground, that was pretty impressive. I was really digging that. Bryce Huff was great. The pass rush late in the game was punishing Michael Penix. What was different? Because they have a good offensive line, I think. Was Penix just holding on to the ball too long? Was the secondary playing that well? What was different with the pass rush, especially late in the game?
They were running some stunts. They were doing some things, showing some pressure, simulating some stuff. But you got, guys working together. And when you get that complementary defensive line play and people are playing for each other, that's when things really start happening. And you've seen it a few times. Guys, it wasn't just Bryce Huff winning off the edge or, the interior pass rush kind of getting a push. It was kind of all of it together. There were a couple of times, especially the first sack that they got on Michael Penix Jr., where Sam Okuwanu got the sack. Bryce Huff got a good pressure, but they had Mikael Williams coming around and looping around. So when he went to step up to run, Mikael Williams showed up all of a sudden and flashed in his face, and he's like, absolutely not. And he started trying to run to the left and right into Sam Okuwanu. So complimentary pass rush from the 49ers, I thought, was the whole key. They definitely put more pressure on Michael Penix Jr. I think they found some advantages with some of their matchups that they had. And guys like Jordan Elliott, he showed up and he showed out this game and showed his ability to pass rush a little bit more. And Bryce Huff was still one of those guys off the edge. But we can't forget, Chase Lucas got a hit on a quarterback. Tatum Bethune had a near sack. So they had other guys as well kind of complementing this pass rush. I thought it was a good plan from Robert Saleh. And also, Saleh did something he doesn't normally do. He ran a lot of man coverage in this game compared to what he's done so far this season. And the 49ers secondary showed up on it. They were right in guys' hip pockets, and I think that threw Michael Penix off a little bit.
Yeah, tough break to lose Bryce Huff to the injury. I mean, 2-3 weeks, whatever it's going to be. But still, and it may be more. I don't know. Just kind of depends on how he comes back. But kind of, I kind of went into that game thinking, yeah, maybe they don't need to trade for a good pass rusher. Now, I kind of think maybe they should, just because, man, you've got to. If they get in the playoffs, this defense is going to have to be on another level. So tough break losing Bryce Huff, especially after the game he had Sunday night.
Yeah, that was tough because Bryce Huff is showing that he's still that big time pass rusher. He just didn't fit with Philadelphia, but we're seeing that New York Jets style Bryce Huff, who is one of the better pass rushers and a feared pass rusher in this league, and they're fearing him. That one, he came off the edge and bent the corner. That's elite bend that he displayed on that play, but he's also stopping the run. He's also chasing guys down. He played really, really well. They're going to miss him. I thought that he was kind of taking over as the de facto captain of that defensive line over the last couple of weeks, and I thought that was really kind of apparent in this one. So this is going to be a big hit for them. I don't know if Yetur Gross-Matos is going to be ready to go this week. I know Kyle said he was going to be rehabbing. I think it's close, but I don't know if he's going to be ready to go. If not, this could be a very interesting defensive end spot with guys like Trevis Gibson and Robert Beal Jr. backing up Sam Okuwanu and Mikael Williams. Not exactly a lot there, and that's frustrating because this Texans offensive line is an offensive line you can take advantage of when it comes to pass rush. CJ Stroud's been sacked 15 times this year already, and they were struggling last week against Seattle. So this is a tough one. I don't know what the 49ers do. Some people have brought up maybe they go with Cleveland Farrell in the short term. He's available. Maybe they could sign him. That would be an option if they could do that. But I think you're right, Mark. I think trade is definitely something they need to do anyways. Bolster the depth, add an extra pass rusher. I don't think Trevis Gibson is the answer. I think they could definitely upgrade the position. So I think they are going to be on the phones, and I think they're going to make a deal. I just don't think they're going to be pressured to do it anytime soon. I think they're going to kind of let this thing play out and get the best possible deal that they can get.
You mentioned Chase Lucas earlier. He had some big plays. That seems to be what this guy does, just make plays. If the game's on the line and the 49ers defense needs to come up with a stop at that nickel spot, would you rather have Chase Lucas, or right now, not down the road, but right now, would you rather have Lucas or Upton Stout?
I'd rather have Upton Stout. I've seen Upton Stout make those plays at the end of the game too, right? Him and Chase Lucas have both made big-time game-saving plays. I give Chase Lucas a lot of respect because he does so much film study. I mean, he talks about the keys that he has, and he was able to jump on those routes. And I think Chase Lucas does a great job, but Upton Stout has got a lot of ability. This dude is an absolute stud. He's better against the run, and so I think that there's a lot there. But I like the 49ers go into some looks and dime looks where maybe you put both of them on the field sometimes in cover situations. But I feel comfortable with both, and I think that's something we haven't been able to say about the nickel corners position for a long time. But I think both of them do a good job. In fact, I feel comfortable with Jason Pennick playing that big nickel too. I think he's the best big nickel the 49ers have had in this regime. So I think that they're kind of getting something going there with the secondary. But I'm comfortable. Anytime 26 is in there, I feel good. Anytime 20 is in there, I feel good.
I think that earlier in the game, because I always do this thing for each game where I just type out my thoughts, my rapid reactions is what I call it. And then I publish it for 49ers Web Zone the next day. Just kind of reliving the game in the moment as I was thinking. So sometimes I'm overreacting and sometimes I'm probably underreacting. One of the things that I wrote earlier in the game was they've got to figure out a way to get Demarcus Robinson involved. I just think that he can do a lot better. And then late in the game, he had that drop that was a horrible drop that at that point could have cost them the game. Is that why he's not more involved? Is it things like that? Or is there some, because with the Rams, that guy, all he did was score touchdowns.
Right now, Mac Jones is not finding Demarcus Robinson. So there were opportunities in this game for Demarcus Robinson to get the ball. And I don't know exactly why, but Mac Jones didn't go to him. There was a play on the very first drive of the game. You might remember they threw an incomplete pass intended for Jawan Jennings on third down, and it was contested. What you don't see is Demarcus Robinson was running the route in front of that, and there's no one around him. If he catches the ball, he probably gets inside the 10-yard line. Like, that's how open he was, and he was missed. So I think right now Mac Jones is still trying to get his chemistry with Demarcus Robinson. I think that's probably part of the problem with George Kittle as well. Even though there was a game plan to take Kittle away, I think that there were some opportunities there. Mac didn't seem as comfortable to go over the middle this week against Atlanta as we've seen him do in previous weeks with, Kendrick Bourne. And so I think that he definitely has his guys right now he feels comfortable with, McCaffrey, Bourne. And I think he was trying to force feed Jawan Jennings a little bit. I really do. And so I think that sometimes Demarcus Robinson wasn't getting opportunities. But yeah, that was a big drop down the field. I do think the defensive back kind of influenced that a little bit with the hand around the waist and that kind of thing. But he's got to make those catches. He had a big drop, a couple weeks before as well. So he's got to make those plays, but there's also some plays that could have probably been easy ones to get him in rhythm that just weren't delivered. And I think Mac Jones is just a little afraid to make some turnovers over the middle of the field, and I understand why. He's trying to help his team win.
Yeah, and it is interesting to think that when Brock Purdy returns, he had chemistry with Demarcus Robinson during training camp. He has chemistry with Ricky Pearsall, with Jawan Jennings, with George Kittle. And so it'll be interesting to see if Kendrick Bourne kind of takes a back seat to some of those others because of that. There was that play on the final scoring drive where I think it was a third down, and Mac Jones, he found McCaffrey down near the goal line. It was a play where Kittle was coming across the middle, and the defenders followed Kittle. But it looked to me like Mac Jones looked off the defender and then threw right behind him to McCaffrey. That was elite. That was, I didn't see the front, so I'm not sure where his eyes were looking, but that's what it looked like, that he was staring down Kittle. And then once that, I don't remember if it was a linebacker or a safety, followed Kittle, then he threw right behind him. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, Mac Jones, in that particular read, he has both those guys working up the seams. And so he's got to read right down the middle at the safety. That's his whole read. The other safety was one-on-one with Christian McCaffrey. So as soon as you saw the alignment, if you're Mac Jones, you're looking at this like, I got one-on-one Xavier Watts versus Christian McCaffrey. That's probably where I want to go. So he looks down the middle of the field. Once he sees that they bracket George Kittle and try to take George Kittle away and all the attention's going that way, then he just turns his attention to Christian McCaffrey and makes a really great throw, protects McCaffrey. McCaffrey gets the first down. It was a really, really nice play, design, execution, and that kind of played into my thought process that this is what was happening all game. And when I watched the All-22, it was they were looking to eliminate George Kittle, and that was opening things up. But now that's what's great about this offense. You now have two draws for a defense to worry about. Who are you going to worry about? Kittle? You're going to worry about McCaffrey. I think that's going to open things up for other guys and other opportunities. But in this one, it opened it up for Christian McCaffrey. And Christian McCaffrey I think it's like the 8th best when it comes to receiving yards in the NFL right now. That's among all receivers. He's 8th best. The dude's having a torrid season so far. But Mac Jones did a great job on that, and I love that throw, and I love the look.
The 49ers are slight underdogs heading into Houston. Someone here in the chat, I'm not sure how to say this name, but they asked, will the 49ers be able to bully the Texans on the run? So do you see the 49ers being able to do that again? Can they run on the Texans?
I think they can run on the Texans. I don't think they're going to be able to just bully the Texans the way they did Atlanta. I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult on Houston. Houston's defense is really good. I mean, we talked about Atlanta being good, but Houston it's really good. And they've got bigger edge defenders. They've got, bigger players. They've got Azeez Al-Shire as well at linebacker. I think they're going to have opportunities to run the ball. I wouldn't be surprised to see the 49ers go over 100 yards again for another week, but I'm not sure we're going to see 150 or 170 yards. I think probably kind of like 100 to 120 is kind of the window I'm looking at. And I think it's going to be a more complex running scheme again, trying to get the Texans moving. DeMeco Ryans has a very particular way that he likes to coach defense, and they will be about stopping the run, and they will be about forcing plays that Mac Jones would like to go over the middle, forcing those to the outside. That's what he does. He filters everything out. And so I think that it's going to be an interesting one. But no, I don't think it's going to be a dominant run game. But if it is, I'll tell you this, that means the 49ers run game is completely back if they dominate Houston on the ground.
Where does Houston have the advantage in this game, and where does the 49ers have the advantage?
I think that when it comes to Houston, they have an advantage when it comes to their defense and their defensive front. That's going to be a real problem for the 49ers when you're talking about the pressure coming off the edge with Danielle Hunter, with Will Anderson. These guys can get after the quarterback, and I think that's going to complicate things. I think they also have a pretty good cornerback room. Kamari Lassiter, Derek Stingley, I think those guys are going to do a pretty good job. So I think that the 49ers offense is going to have the pressure on them. I think they're going to have to run the ball. I think they're going to have to convert on third downs, which they've been really good at this year. 49ers, one of the best in the league. 47% of the time they convert on third down. That is almost elite levels in the NFL. That's going to be a key in this because the Houston Texans, they only allow conversions at 32%. So this is good on good. And I think that that's going to be some of the key factors. But I worry about Colt McKivitz in this matchup against guys who are not just speed, but that speed to power combination. I think it's going to be a tough matchup for the 49ers. But if they can get something going on offense, I think they'll be okay. Now, when it comes to the 49ers advantage starts with Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan, when he coaches against people that he's coached with or coached, above, he just dominates. And so I think this is going to be a tough one for Houston because Kyle Shanahan, number one, is going to be able to kind of neutralize DeMeco Ryans' defense a little bit and get some opportunities. And then when you look at Robert Saleh in the defense, CJ Stroud in that offense have just not been good. They don't throw for over 200 yards per game. They run the ball, effectively, but it's not tremendously effective. They definitely are missing, the run game with Joe Mixon now that they've got Nick Chubb and others. So they haven't been as effective, and they got a really weak offensive line right now. They just haven't been playing very good. So I think Shanahan neutralizes, and then Robert Saleh might just slow down that Texans offense enough for the 49ers to be able to get a win.
So who's going to win? What do you think? What do you see happening?
Yeah, FanDuel, you said 1.5. The 49ers are the underdogs right now. That's basically a pick'em game. That means it's in Houston. Normally it starts at 3. So this is going to be I think it's going to be a fun one. The over under 41.5. And the reason that is because the 49ers defense just came out and shut down Atlanta and held them to 10 points, the lowest output all year. And yeah, that was without All-Pro Fred. That was without Renardo Green. That was without Upton Stout. That's some crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. So I do think that this defense is going to play well again against Houston. I think Houston has some holes when it comes to offense. And I just completely count on Kyle Shanahan, the run game, and Mac Jones being timely with his throws for the 49ers to be able to move the ball consistently against Houston and be able to get some points. I do believe this could be a big Eddie Pinheiro game. I think that he's going to have some field goals in this game because Houston's good. Now, in the red zone, Houston's defense isn't great. 49ers can have success if they get in the red zone. The question is, are they going to be able to get there? DeMeco Ryans dial up some blitzes, do some things like that. But I got the 49ers winning this game. I think that they are going to slow down that Texans defense. Texans offense. I'm saying 23-13 for the 49ers. I think they hold CJ Stroud in that offense down.
We'll take it. Would be a great week for Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall to return, but it doesn't sound like that's going to happen. That's all that I have. You have anything else before we take off?
No, I mean, I think that we covered it. I think this is going to be a fun matchup for the 49ers. You get anytime you get a former coach, it's a lot of fun. I really like DeMeco Ryans a lot. But since they've moved on, from Bobby Sloak. That offense has really struggled. CJ Stroud has really struggled. They might be missing Nico Collins. They might be missing another wide receiver they're missing, like Christian Kirks. They might be missing him again. And if that's the case, they're down their top two wide receivers going into this game. They already are missing Joe Mixon. I don't know. It seems pretty tough for the Houston Texans. 2-5. 49ers have an opportunity to go get another big win on the road in Houston.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. We appreciate it. That helps us out. And so we would love it if you would do that. We'll be back again next week for another brand new episode of the Red and Bold Show. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Have a great rest of your week.